story time with any Gina.
I remember it all, every terrible moment, every agonizing detail. They haunt me now, filling the empty spaces in my mind with a coldness I can never seem to shake. But it's not just the transformation itself that tortures me. It's the way everything changed before it happened. How I should have seen the signs, but didn't. How I never could have imagined that the woman who raised me, who loved me, would be capable of something so monstrous. Let me take you back, before it all spiraled into madness. I was young then, just a child, and my grandmother was the center of my world. Her house stood at the edge of the village, an old cottage with crooked walls, and a chimney that always seemed to puff out smoke. Even on the clearest days, we lived in the kind of place where the past never seemed far away, where the forest whispered secrets to those who would listen. And my grandmother, well, she had always been a bit of a mystery. Everyone in the village called her Old Mora, though I never thought of her that way. She was my grandmother, my protector, the one who could always make everything seem better. Even the villagers spoke of her with a mixture of awe and fear. They'd say that Mora had knowledge, that she'd once been a healer, but now she kept mostly to herself, her methods becoming stranger and harder to understand. Some of the older women would whisper behind closed doors that she'd been touched by something otherworldly, something dark. But I didn't care about that. As a child, I only knew love. I loved her stories, her old-fashioned ways, the way she'd bake me sweet pies and braid flowers into my hair. But there was always something strange. When I was younger, I remember her telling me bedtime stories, but they were never the fairy tales other children heard. No, grandmother's tales were different. They were about beings ancient, powerful, and terrifying, about creatures that could change shape, that lived in the shadows of the world. I always thought she was just playing with me, filling my head with fanciful nonsense. I never believed it, not until the night when everything shifted. It began quietly, like the first whisper of a storm. The autumn harvest was in full swing, and the wind carried the scent of fallen leaves and earth. That evening, I helped grandmother in the garden, pulling weeds from the soil and picking the last of the herbs she'd planted months before. It was a task I'd grown used to, one that felt comforting. The evening sun hung low in the sky, casting a soft, golden glow over the garden. But that day, that evening was different. There was something in the air that didn't feel right.
Grandmother was acting strangely. She didn't talk as much as usual, and her hands shook when she worked, as though she was nervous, though she'd never been nervous a day in her life. I tried to ask her what was wrong, but she only smiled faintly and said, "The time has come, Alina. The time has come for you to understand." I didn't know what she meant, but I felt an unsettling chill run down my spine. That night, as the harvest moon began to rise, we sat by the fire in the hearth. She stirred the flames absently, her eyes lost in the flickering light. I could see that something was weighing heavily on her heart. "Grandmother," I asked again, "what's happening?" She turned to me slowly, her old eyes glistening in the firelight. "The moon is full tonight," she said, her voice soft, almost reverent. "It's time for you to learn what you truly are, Alina." I frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully, then motioned for me to come closer. There, sitting between us, was a small box, old, carved wood with strange symbols etched into its surface. I hadn't noticed it until then. The moment I laid eyes on it, an overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. "Open it, child," she said, her voice low, urgent. My hands trembled as I touched the box. The air grew colder, like the warmth of the fire was slowly being smothered. I pried open the lid, and inside lay a stone smooth, black as coal, with veins of red that shimmered, pulsing with an inner light. I had never seen anything like it before. "What is it?" I whispered. "It is a gift," she said, her voice distant. "A gift that's been passed down through the bloodlines of our family. A gift that you will one day understand. A gift of power." "Power," I repeated, bewildered. "What kind of power?" Her gaze softened, but there was an odd sadness in her eyes. "It is not something you can control right away, Alina. But it is a part of you. A part of who you are. You are of the bloodline of the asterisk ones, asterisk those who can change form, who can wield the magic of the earth and sky. You are not just my granddaughter. You are something more." I didn't understand. "I don't want this kind of power, grandmother. I don't." But before I could finish, She placed her hand on mine, her grip surprisingly strong. "You will learn to understand in time," she said. "But it's already begun. It's already in you." Suddenly, a sharp pain pierced through my chest as if something inside me was stretching, tearing apart. I gasped, stumbling back, my body shaking with the force of it. The stone in my hand felt like it was burning, like it was pulling at my very soul. I cried out, but the sound that escaped my lips wasn't a scream. It was a bleat. The world around me began to warp. I watched in horror as my fingers turned to hooves, my arms shrinking, my skin hardening and changing, my face elongated, my nose stretching into the broad snout of a goat, my ears flicking like animal ears. The room spun around me, the firelight growing dimmer and dimmer, and I felt myself being pulled into something. A place between human and beast. I tried to scream, tried to call out, but all that came from my throat was a strange, bleating sound. My voice was gone, my human form slipping away into something darker, something that wasn't me. And all the while, my grandmother stood before me, watching in silence. "Grandmother." No, I tried to cry, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I felt my body convulsing, my thoughts turning to fog, as the creature inside me began to take over. It was as if I were a prisoner in my own body. She said nothing for a long while. "Just watch." Her face was a mask of sorrow and resolve. "This is what you were always meant to be, Alina. The magic of our bloodline has chosen you. And now, you will live in the world as it was always intended." With those final words, she left me. I was alone, standing in the dim glow of the fire, no longer human, but a creature, twisted reflection of who I had once been. I tried to understand, tried to make sense of it all, but I couldn't. My mind, once sharp, was clouded by the animal instincts that now pulsed within me. All I could feel was the pain of loss, the aching emptiness of knowing that I would never be human again. I don't know how much time passed. Days, weeks, months. I wandered through the forests, hiding from the village, too afraid to face anyone, too ashamed of what I had become. The world had become a blur of bleats, shadows, and confusion. My only company was the silence, and even that became a prison. Every now and then, I would hear her voice in my mind, and I would remember what she had said. "You will understand in time." But time, I have learned, does not heal all wounds. Some wounds remain open, festering, reminding you of what was lost. And as I stand here, alone in the shadow of the mountains, surrounded by the animals I now share my body with, I wonder, did she truly love me? Or was I just another step in her twisted path? What is the price of magic, of power, when it rips the very soul from the person you love most? I don't know, but I am Alina, or I was, and I will never forget the night my grandmother turned me into something else, something that will never truly belong anywhere again.
Thank you for watching. Please click on the subscribe button and the notification button to get notified when we drop new stories. Thank you.